Today I started capturing all of my footage onto an Adobe Premiere file that I have set up. I made sure that it was set to 25 frames per second, which is what I filmed in, so that it all sort of fitted together. Once I'd uploaded my footage, I started sort of editing it all together. At this point I don't have all of the footage that I need so far, as I'm missing some footage for the beginning of my documentary, but I'm going to film that at a later date. To make things easier for me, what I've done is I've left open the documents file with all of my recordings in, so that I can sort of juggle between that and the Adobe Premiere, so I can sort of always see what footage I've got, because I've filmed many takes of one shot, so that I can watch them on one side and sort of see which one fits best and which is the best recording, and then I can import it into Adobe. So what I've done is I've left open that and then started importing all of the best ones into Adobe Premiere, so I can then I'm not sort of wasting any of my sort of footage drive, and I'm renaming them as well, so that it makes it more clear which files I want to use. So at the moment, obviously because today's the first day I've started editing it all together, I haven't actually done much to it, but I've started by bringing in the video files and editing them together, cutting them in the correct areas, and from this image you can see that I've started overlapping audio files and video files, so that it sort of goes seamlessly like a documentary would. I've also started adjusting the sound as well. So when the cuts go to the next cut, the audio doesn't sound like too prominent, so it sort of gradually comes in like a fade, so that the audio doesn't sound too heavy and it just sort of goes quite seamlessly together. Today I started the titles for the interviews. At first I wasn't quite sure of how I wanted them to look, but I knew that I wanted them to have a border around them. So what I did was I went to create a title, and I put Susan Pittman as the top line, and then I put Arthur's wife underneath, and I situated it in the left because for this particular interview, the interviewee is on the right of the screen, so I put the title in the bottom left hand corner, and I made sure it was inside the frame lines, and I then started to put a border around it, and I adjusted the opacity of it so that it wasn't too sort of solid, and it didn't sort of take away from the interview really. And then I started rendering the files that I've done so far. And then once I had imported the title, I created the border and I made the border white, and once I had finished that, I put it over the top of the interview at the beginning of it, and I just changed how it sort of came in. I made sure that it faded in and out, so that it didn't just look like it was placed there. It sort of went with the audio and went with the footage. And I left that on for about 3 or 4 seconds. Today I began thinking about, although on what I've edited together so far, I've only put one interview in, I began thinking about the cutaways that I could put in between those. And for my Nan's interview, she talks about sort of being lonely and not having not having my granddad in the chair that he always used to sit in. And so what I was looking through my footage that I've got so far, and I started putting in the cutaway footage. So when she walks in and there's no one on the chair, and so she sits down in her place, and sort of when she's in the kitchen making tea and he isn't there. And then on one of her other interviews, when she talks about how she has to take an 1.5-hour bus, I've filmed a bus going by, so I've just turned the audio down on the bus so that I could keep it in, but I haven't taken away the distraction from the interview, so you've got those two sounds sort of overlapped there, but you can still hear both really clearly. I've also added more to what I've done so far, so I've included the next interview as well. So I've included more from my brother's interview. What I've done is I've put a little bit in between the two interviews, so it sort of introduces his character. So I've sort of, in my voiceover, although I haven't recorded it yet, it's going to mention how people have come to visit her who live far away but they're family, and then in comes my brother. So that bit sort of looks staged, but it is sort of a code and convention of documentaries. So in he comes, and then I've included a sort of family talk between my nan, my brother, and another family member, of her sort of explaining to them what's happened, and then so it sort of builds up a bit about who he is when he's having his interview. So although at the bottom it will again give a title of sort of Daniel Pratt, Arthur's grandson, he's sort of introduced, which is in my plan as well. So I have tried to stick to my plan as best as I could, but it has changed slightly.